On a rainy night in Chicago, a front desk clerk slid 2 key cards across the counter and said, "You'll be sharing." I was tired, 46, a small-town doctor attending another conference and ready to argue. Then he turned, this stranger, with steady eyes and a soft laugh, and everything complicated inside me grew quiet. We were 2 men with matching lanyards and a hotel room that neither of us expected to share. What happened between the hum of the air conditioner and the city's neon changed my practice, my heartbeat, and the way I tell the truth about love. Stay with me for this gentle, true-to-life story. If it resonates, tap like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs hope. Comment your thoughts, kindly, openly. For more compassionate narratives and well-being tips from a doctor's heart, turn on notifications and join our growing community. Your presence here deeply matters. My name is Michael Reed. Most folks call me Dr. Reed at the clinic, but I prefer Michael. I am a family physician from Columbus, Ohio. I keep a wooden bowl of peppermints on my desk and a framed photo of my dog, Paisley, right beside the blood pressure cuff. I like the slow, sacred pace of primary care. I prefer quiet rooms, listening, the small miracles you can miss if you hurry. That night, I did not hurry. There was a long line at the hotel check-in desk, the kind where people shuffle forward and exhale together when the rope moves. Outside, the river pushed past the bridges, green and restless under the streetlights. A Cubs game was letting out somewhere. Laughter carried like music, even in the rain. "Sorry, Dr. Reed," the clerk said, eyes apologetic but practiced. "We're oversold. We can comp you and pair you with another attendee. Double beds. It's the best I can do." I looked at my watch. It was after 10. I had given 4 talks in 3 days about aging with dignity, about listening to the quiet symptoms, fatigue, forgetfulness, fear that tell you where it hurts. I was in that soft space where the body feels both light and heavy, like the first minute after a nap. "Fine," I said, because fighting the tide never saved anyone from getting wet. "Who am I sharing with?" He checked the screen and smiled. "Daniel Carter, he's already here." The elevator hummed up 30 floors. I could hear my heart in its old, reliable rhythm, a companion I have trusted through grief and joy, and the boring Tuesday afternoons in between. When the doors opened, a hallway of patterned carpet led to our room. I knocked softly. The door swung open. He stood there in a faded navy hoodie and conference badge, clean-shaven, tired, kind eyes that seemed to understand something before I said it. He held a steaming cup of tea, and the other bed was neatly made. "Michael," he said, extending a hand. "I'm Daniel. Sorry about the mix-up." We shook hands. His grip was warm. The room was warm. Somewhere between the two, something else warmed too. We settled into that gentle choreography that strangers learn when space is suddenly shared. A bag in the corner, a charger borrowed. "Do you mind if I—" offered before a light switch clicked. 2 beds, identical, the kind of beige quiet that hotels save for travel-worn souls. The air conditioner whispered, steady like a metronome. "I'm from Madison," Daniel said, pulling his hoodie sleeves to his wrists. "Social work, palliative care. I run family meetings and talk about hard things. You?" "Family medicine," I said. "Columbus. I run family meetings and talk about hard things too." He smiled. "So we speak the same language." We compared notes the way people in caring professions often do. Not the gossip, the grace. He told me he keeps a small notebook where he writes down one thing a patient taught him each week. He said last Tuesday, a retired mechanic showed him how to hold a wrench, not because he needed to, but because connection sometimes looks like learning something simple with your hands. I told him about Ms. Dunbar, who claims peppermint settles her nerves and will not leave until I tell her a joke. I told him how grief has a schedule that no calendar can capture. His laugh was easy. I heard my own become easier in response. He made chamomile tea for both of us, stirring the honey like he knew exactly how much sweetness a body can hold before it spills. We talked about travel delays, about the way Chicago smells like deep dish and rain. The conversation ambled. We did not push it. The safest bridges are crossed slowly. There was a photo of a young woman on his phone's lock screen, smiling at a sunset over Lake Mendota. Her hair was in a bright scarf. Her eyes were proud and shy at once. He caught me noticing. "My daughter," he said. "Lily, 19, sophomore in Michigan. She wants to be an art teacher. I'm thrilled. Her mother and I are friends now." He let the rest of the sentence sit down between us and catch its breath. "And you?" he asked. "I had a long relationship that ended," I answered. 2 years ago. We were kind, mostly. But the vision broke. I have a good life. I thought that would be enough." He nodded. "Sometimes enough is a placeholder for hope." We brushed our teeth at the same sink, turning in unspoken turns. Two men, midlife, tired, kind. He turned off the lamp. "Good night, Michael," he said into the hush. "Good night, Daniel," I whispered back, surprised at how full my name sounded, in his voice. Sleep comes in layers when you are not in your own bed. You notice the weight of the blankets. You hear a neighbor's footsteps through the wall. You wake and sleep and wake again, each time a new thought waiting like a small child by the bed. Around midnight, I woke to a soft rustle. Daniel was sitting up, his silhouette outlined by the city glow. He looked toward the window as if listening to the rain's advice. I watched for a moment, the way doctors sometimes watch breathing in the dark, counting invisible numbers to make sure the lungs. "And the mind still talk. You awake?" he asked. "Yes," I said, sitting up. "Can't turn the brain off?" He chuckled, quiet. "Something like that." I swung my legs over the side. The carpet was surprisingly soft. We sat on the edge of our beds, facing each other across the small nightstand that held 2 glasses of hotel water and our room keys like paired commas. "Do you ever feel," he began, choosing words with care, "like being good at helping other people means you forget how to ask for help yourself?" His honesty felt like a dropped guardrail that somehow made the road safer. I nodded. "Often," I said. It is easier to be the calm voice than to admit the storm is inside your own chest. He smiled with his eyes. "I like the way you say things. It is a hazard of the job," I said. "We practice careful speech." He told me he came out at 39. A slow, tender exit from a life he had built with a kind woman he still respected. He worried about breaking anyone's heart. He worried about his own. I told him I came out at 22, but learned what it meant at 44. Grief stripped away my old costumes and left me with a mirror I could not avoid. We spoke softly, more not to wake each other's ghosts than to respect the neighbors. We told small stories. The time I cried in my car after telling a patient there was nothing more we could do, and then realized there was, in fact, more. I could sit with him so he was not alone. The afternoon he realized his own loneliness, too, had a name, and that naming it was the first relief. The rain turned to a hush. The radiator clicked. He reached over, a simple gesture, and rested his hand on the nightstand's edge, near mine. Not touching, not rushing, a promise of presence without demand. "Michael," he said, his voice low, "do you mind if we leave the lamp on?" "I do not mind," I said. "We can be the kind of men who do not turn out the light to talk." We fell asleep like that, not quite strangers, each steadied by the other's quiet. Morning in a hotel room feels like waking in a borrowed life. The city was gray-blue through the blinds. A delivery truck hissed to a stop below. The carpet held, the shape of last night's feet. Daniel's bed was neatly slept in. He was awake, already dressed, his hoodie pulled up as he read a paper handout from the conference. "Coffee?" he asked when he saw me. I found a place around the corner that grinds it like a ceremony. Or there's the lobby option, which tastes like meetings. I laughed. Let's be kind to ourselves. Ceremony. We walked into the cool morning. Chicago has a way of waking you up by blowing Lake Michigan right through your jacket. We ducked into a cafe with brick walls and a chalkboard menu. The barista had sleeves of ink and a gentle smile. Daniel ordered a pour-over. I went with drip and a blueberry muffin that reminded me of my Aunt Linda's kitchen back in Dayton. Stood by the window and watched umbrellas bloom on the sidewalk. He told me how he got into social work, a high school guidance counselor who listened well enough to make him feel seen. A professor who said grief counseling is less about words and more about making a safe place in time. I told him I became a doctor because I liked puzzles and because my grandfather's doctor visited him at home, took off his hat at the door, and carried a black bag that seemed to hold comfort. I never forgot that. We ate and drank. He had a way of listening that made me slow down. My patients teach me about this all the time. Sometimes we do not need a cure. We need another human to hold the moment steady. At the conference, we sat together, in the third row. Speakers talked about loneliness as a risk factor, about the power of community to add years to a life. We nodded at each other. Once, his knee bumped mine. It was accidental, and it was not. My heart did not race. It recognized. At lunch, we split a sandwich on the Riverwalk, and the wind tried to carry our napkins to Indiana. He told me Lily calls on Sundays without fail. I told him I call my mom on Tuesdays, and she tells me what her church friends are cooking. Can I say something that might be strange? He asked, eyes on the water, voice careful. You can, I said. I feel safer near you than I expected to, he said. And I did not realize how much I missed feeling safe until now. I took a breath. Me too, I said. We are allowed to be surprised by comfort. We walked through the Art Institute after our sessions ended. It was a museum kind of day. The rain came and went. The light inside was steady and kind. He stood in front of Monet's haystacks for a long time, studying how the same subject changed in different light. I stood in front of a Hopper painting and felt the quiet in the diner bleed into my bones. Is it strange that I want to narrate all of this like a case study? I joked. Subject, male, middle-aged, walks into a museum and notices his heart. Unclench. He laughed. We should write it up. Double-blind. Except I can see you, so maybe not. We ate dinner at a small place with brick walls and candles and heavy glasses. The server wrote her name in blue pen on the paper menu and smiled like she knew a secret. We ordered pasta and split the salad because we were already splitting things. He told me about Madison's farmer's market. I told him about Columbus's spring flowering trees. We compared notes on Midwest weather, the way it will turn your day into a lesson about humility. He did not ask for my history in a way that demanded details. He made space for it. I said I had been with Mark for 13 years. I said we wanted different futures. I said we were still kind when we ended. I said that kindness did not make it hurt less. He said he had married young because it was the road in front of him, and he had learned late that the road could turn without being wrong. He said he loved his ex-wife for teaching him to be gentle. He said he loved his daughter for teaching him why truth matters. You know, he said, twirling his fork, I tell families all the time that we can do hard things when we do them slowly. Do you follow your own advice? I asked. I try, he said, smiling. Today I'm practicing. We walked back to the hotel through streets that glowed with rain. He held the door and stepped back like the men in my father's generation did. Not because I could not open it, but because courtesy is a habit that makes crowded places feel less sharp. Upstairs, we brushed our teeth in the same tender choreography as the night before. He turned off the lamp and then turned it back on. Can we talk a little? He asked. I do not want to miss this by rushing. We can talk, I said, sitting on my bed, hands folded like I do when a patient is telling me the truth they practiced in the car before the appointment. I do not know what this is, he said, exhaling. I know I want it to be true. Then let it be true, I answered, my voice the steady I give to people who have not been steady with themselves. We can let something be small and real before it is large and named. He reached for my hand. The first touch was not fireworks. It was recognition. Peach skin, warm palm. Two men in midlife who knew the cost of pretending. I did not feel young. I felt honest. I am careful with what I promise a patient. I am careful with what I promise myself. The heart is a strong muscle. It is also tender. It remembers. That night, I let my heart listen above the noise of habit. We lay on top of our covers and talked. We did not make a script. We followed breath. He told me about the time he lost a patient he had sat with for weeks and how he drove to the lake and let the cold air scrape his lungs clean. I told him about the first time I told a patient I loved him. It was an older man with Parkinson's, whose wife had died. He had no family left. We had sat together for 6 months of Tuesdays. When he died, my body felt the loss like a piece of furniture removed from a familiar room. The space did not make sense at first. I am sorry, Daniel said. His hand stayed with mine. I am glad you tell the truth. Are you afraid? I asked. Of this? He considered. A little. I am afraid of wanting. But I am more tired of being careful than I am of being honest. Me too, I said. We did not kiss then. We did not change anything with speed. We changed it by telling the truth out loud. I slept, and the sleep was the kind that holds your head with both hands. Morning came with a soft knock on our door. Housekeeping. We called out together, "We are good, thank you," in a chorus. That made us laugh. We dressed. He wore a white button-down with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. I noticed the ease in his shoulders. My tie was crooked, and I did not fix it. I liked the imperfection. It felt like proof. At the conference, he sat beside me again. The speaker talked about moral injury, about how caregivers carry burdens that are not visible and rarely named. The room hummed with recognition. A question rose from the back row about how to recover. The speaker said, community, rest, boundaries, and love. Daniel's knee found mine again under the table. I did not move away. After this, he whispered, let's take a walk. We slipped out and found the river again. A violinist played under a bridge. Pigeons strutted as if they had paid for tickets. We leaned on the railing and watched a tour boat glide by, the guide's voice cheerful and steady through the speaker. It feels like my life has been in grayscale for a while, he said. And now there is color again. What color? I asked. Because a good question is a gift. Warm, he said. And then, as if he worried about saying too much, like the inside of a house at night when you walk by and see people laughing in the kitchen. I looked at him, this gentle man who had shared a room and his story and his tea and his courage. We can let ourselves be that warm, I said. We are allowed. Late that afternoon, on our way to the elevators, a voice rang down the hallway, urgent and thin. Help! Somebody, please! The sound pulled us like a magnet. We turned the corner. A man in his 70s was slumped against the patterned wallpaper, his hand on his chest, skin pale and damp. His wife knelt beside him, her eyes wide the way eyes go when time stretches. I was at his side before my bag hit the carpet. Daniel, crouched smoothly, voice low and calm. I am a doctor, I said, because in moments like that, titles open doors. This is Daniel. We are here. His wife explained what she could. He had the look I have seen often, fear, fatigue, and a body, trying to get a message through. We assessed together, hands steady, eyes meeting to confirm, like a dance we both knew without rehearsal. Daniel spoke to the wife, kept her breathing slow and even, Asked if there were medications, allergies, a recent cold. I focused on the man, felt the carotid, listened to the breath that sounded like the wind before a storm. "Call downstairs," Daniel said to a startled housekeeper in the doorway, his voice the sure kind. "Tell them we need EMS on this floor. Please hurry." We worked in the small space the hallway allowed. I asked the man his name. "George," he whispered. I asked where the pain was. He pointed and winced. I checked his watch and counted. I kept my voice low, the same way I talk to my patients in exam rooms because bodies know when you rush them. Daniel's presence held the room together. He spoke to George's wife, told her what was happening and why, reminded her to breathe, not with the false cheer I have heard in many hallways, but with truth that does not add weight. Paramedics arrived quickly, boots thudding, stretcher swiveling. One of them recognized Daniel. "Hey, Carter," he said, half a smile even in the urgency. "Fancy seeing you here." They took over. We stepped back, hands out of the way, knees aching from the carpet. I could feel the after-tremor that comes after your body has been a bridge for someone else. It is a good tremor. It tells you you are alive. George squeezed my hand before they rolled. "Thank you, Doctor." "You are welcome," I said. "Be gentle. You are in good hands." When the hallway quieted, Daniel and I stood with our backs against the wall. We looked at each other and did not need words. We had just showed ourselves, without warning, what we are like when it matters. Back in our room, we washed our hands with the hotel soap and sat on the edge of the bed again. This time our shoulders touched. The contact felt like a signature. "That is who you are," I said softly. "The steady, the science, and the kindness." He looked at me, eyes bright. "It is who you are too." We were tired. We were awake. The city continued, unaware that my life had subtly tipped. We did not kiss yet. We did something harder. We let the afterglow of service wash over us together. We let it teach us how safe we could be. I have told patients 1,000 times that the body needs time after adrenaline. Drink water. Sit down. Name the feelings so they do not try to climb out sideways. That night, we did those things. We drank water, the kind that tastes like tap and hotel air, and we sat by the window and spoke in the gentle voice we give to scared animals. "Do you need space?" he asked. "I need presence," I said. "We can sit without fixing anything." We watched the streets below. The stoplights changed politely. Taxis glided. The city pulsed and did not ask us to keep up. We made a small, slow room inside our larger, fast one. He told me about the first time he performed CPR as a young paramedic. How the world narrowed to compressions and breath and counting, and then widened again into a family's cry and his own shaking hands. I told him about the patient who waited until his son arrived from Phoenix to let go. The breathing easing only when the hand he had been waiting to hold finally held him. We grew quiet. Silence is not a failure in a conversation. It is an organ. It keeps things alive. It lets the unspoken metabolize. "Michael," he said, voice careful, "I am drawn to you." "I know," I said, my smile a kind of yes. "I am drawn to you too." "May I sit beside you?" he asked, even though he already was. The question was about consent, about care. I nodded. He slid closer. Our thighs touched. My shoulder fit under his arm like a familiar book returns to its shelf. He smelled like soap and rain and something warm I could not name. "May I kiss you?" he asked. And the room held its breath. "Yes," I said, and I felt the word ring through my chest the way a bell does. The first kiss tasted like tea, like relief, like a decision that had already been made by two nervous systems. It was not frantic. It was specific. It said, "I am here. Are you here too?" We were. We stayed. We paused often. We laughed once when our noses bumped. We let ourselves be men with history, and still, with newness. We kept the lights on. We did not take off anything we did not want to. We did not pretend our bodies were other than they were. We loved with the care we use when we handle the most delicate tissues. We allowed mercy. Later, under the covers, we talked again. We named what we could promise in that moment, and what we could not. We said we would be honest, we would be gentle, we would make decisions in daylight, not just in the glow of a hotel lamp. "Everything feels different," he said into the dark, his breath warm near my cheek. "It is," I said, "and it is also exactly the same. We are who we were. We just told the truth about it." We fell asleep with our fingers intertwined, the simplest bridge. The conference ended. People rolled suitcases. Lanyards disappeared into pockets. The hotel lobby returned to its daily rhythm, which, to me, now carried a private hymn. We exchanged numbers, of course, but more than numbers, we exchanged plans. "How do you feel about highways?" he asked, smiling. "I like them when they lead somewhere that matters," I said. He drove to Columbus 2 weeks later. He brought cheese curds from Wisconsin and a book of Mary Oliver poems. I cleaned my house like a man meeting hope, which is to say I put flowers on the table and vacuumed under the couch where dust keeps secrets. We took Paisley to the park, and she decided immediately that he belonged. We ate at a diner where the waitress called everyone honey, and the pancakes were the size of memory. We listened to music in my living room. He sat on the floor with his back to the couch, and I sat behind him and put my hands on his shoulders. He leaned back without thinking, which is a kind of trust you cannot fake. Over months, we chose the slow road. We visited each other's lives. I met Lily. She made me a bracelet out of simple beads and said, "You make my dad smile with his whole face." I kept the bracelet on my dresser where I see it every morning. He met my mother, who had years ago handed me the kind of love that does not flinch. She saw him and said, "Oh, sweetheart, you are a good one." He held her hand, as if he had always known her. We learned each other's circles. His friends in Madison who gardened and made stew on Sundays. My friends in Columbus who ran a book club and always overcooked the pasta. We learned habits. He likes 2 pillows, not 1. I like to read in bed. He calls his daughter every Sunday, without fail. I walk my dog every morning before the day can talk me out of it. We were not perfect. We had histories that sometimes banged pots in the kitchen. He had a week where he retreated because an old fear returned and asked if he was allowed this much ease. I had a day when my grief for the life I had planned burst into the room and asked to be noticed again. We did not fix each other. We sat together and let things pass through. We held hands. We said, "What do you need right now?" And then we listened without trying to be clever. I told my staff at the clinic. I told them I was seeing someone, that he made me laugh and feel brave, that he helped me practice the advice I give. They cheered in the break room and a nurse waved a spoon like a baton, he told his team. They baked a cake. He sent me a photo of the cake with "Welcome, Michael" in blue frosting that looked like a lake in summer. A year after the hotel key slid across the counter, we returned to Chicago. The city was cool again. The river had the same restless pulse. The clerk at the desk was different and did not know our story. That was fine. The story knew us. We booked the same floor, the same view. 2 beds that we did not need as separate worlds anymore. We walked the river walk. We ate at the same small place with candles and heavy glasses. We split the salad again. We laughed at ourselves for not changing some things that do not need change. We talked about the future like 2 men holding a map and a marker. We did not draw lines with haste. We circled places gently like, "Here, I want more of this." He wanted a garden. I wanted a porch. He wanted Sundays with stew. I wanted a dog bed by his chair. "Do you want to live in Madison?" he asked. "I want to live with you," I said, and I listened to my voice say it like a steady diagnosis. "Then we will decide which city belongs to us." We chose Columbus first because my clinic needed me, and his job allowed a transfer. He found a position at a hospice where the light in the rooms was kind and the staff laughed often. He joined a pickup basketball game on Saturdays. I found a community choir that sings the old songs with new, earnest voices. Lily visits. She puts her feet on my coffee table and critiques our music taste. We listen to her and nod like good students. Our home is not large. It has a porch. It has a garden box he built with the confidence of a man who believes in tomatoes. It has a kitchen that holds stew on Sundays and pancakes on Saturdays. It has a dog bed by his chair. Sometimes, after long days, we sit with tea and silence. He leans into my shoulder. I tell him about Ms. Dunbar's latest joke. He tells me about a family that found a way to say goodbye well. We do not delete the hard. We soften it by sharing it. When I see patients now, I take an extra minute at the end of each visit and ask, "Who keeps you company?" Some laugh and say, "My cat is a dictator." Some cry and say, "I have not thought about that in a while." We talk about loneliness the way we talk about blood pressure. We treat it. We do not shame it. A few times a year, someone asks me how I knew I was ready, how I knew he was safe. I tell them what I tell you. Safety felt like a quiet room where the air conditioner hummed and a man asked if we could leave the lamp on. Readiness felt like my heart recognizing its own language spoken back to it. We keep 2 key cards in a bowl by the door. Not because we need them, but because they remind us of mercy. Every time I drop my keys into the bowl, the plastic clinks, and I hear the clerk's voice again saying, "You'll be sharing." Every time I think, yes, we will. We do. We still return to the river when we go to Chicago. We lean on the railing and watch the tour boats glide by. We listen to the city tell a story of bridges and steel, of cold winters and sweet summers, of people choosing each other in 1,000 small ways. We hold hands. We tell the truth out loud. We go back to the hotel and turn on the lamp. We leave it on when we talk. If you are watching this and wondering if it is too late, listen to me the way you would listen to a doctor you trust. Your heart is a strong muscle. It is also tender. It remembers. It can learn. You are allowed to choose warmth. You are allowed to be surprised by comfort. You are allowed to share the room. I was 46 in that lobby. I am older now. We all are if we are lucky. What changed was not my age. It was my answer to a simple question. When love asks for a chair, will you set one out? I did. He did. We sit often together and call it home.